leads to our next point. What is resource efficiency? So, so here we have flow units, or we have pieces of work. And what happens is the pieces of work get attached to a resource. It can either be a team or an individual. And the idea here is that we want to maximize the output of this resource. We put a whole bunch of work in them so they don't have empty capacity. The funny thing is you can actually replace that resource, that person, with a machine, like a piece of equipment or a conference room. We want to make sure that that conference room, that piece of equipment, is always at capacity. So it makes a lot of sense from an organizational point of view. We want to maximize capacity. We don't want to waste the investment that we've made. So the focus here is on high resource utilization and reduction of per unit cost of flow unit or of work. So back to here, we've got our Scrum 4 model. Each team, planning team, design team, development team, they're all at they're allocated work, and we want to make sure that they're fully utilized all the time in this model. Okay. So the next one we have is flow efficiency. So what is flow efficiency all about? So we go back to my assurance team that I was coaching 6 months ago. One thing I did was implement a Kanban system, which is actually all about showing the flow of work within the team. So originally they were, in their Water Scrum 4, each individual was assigned a set of functional tasks, something like, implement this database, configure this and do that. In this model, we actually break up the work by value, by customer value, by stories, and we want to get that piece of value delivered from ready to ready for production as quick as possible. So the objective of flow efficiency is to reduce the amount of time it takes to identify a need and get that satisfied as quickly as possible. So to go back to a similar diagram, in this case, we've got the flow unit, and we assign the resources to get that flow unit to a state of done, or a state of completed. So it's kind of flipped around from the way we looked at in resource efficiency. Any questions so far? Okay. So now we know the difference between flow efficiency and resource efficiency. So this segues to the fundamentals of flow. I'm going to get a bit of Dilbert in there. So fundamentals of flow, also known as the theory of constraints. So the point of this comment is every system has a bottleneck. So this is the system, and there's a constraint or bottleneck in the center. So in manufacturing, it's very simple to see where a bottleneck is. On the floor, you'll have all these different machines, and the work in progress, the inventory, or the parts will start piling up in front of a machine, and you'll know that there's a bottleneck. But in software and in other knowledge-based work, the bottlenecks, the work in progress, isn't as obvious. Now, another thing about bottlenecks is that the performance of the system, of the whole system, is dependent on the bottleneck. Like any system, there's always going to be a bottleneck, like there's a weakest link in every chain. So your point here is that the whole system is limited by that bottleneck. So you've got 10 units coming into the bottleneck, 5 units coming out. Even if you make that 20 units coming in, it will only ever be 5 units coming out. So let's bring this back to my assurance team, to software delivery. So you've got the different stages of software delivery. And in this case, engineering or software development is the bottleneck, which was the case in my assurance team. So the only way to improve the overall system is to improve or focus on that bottleneck. Now, we start hitting an issue when each of these teams, we have a problem when each of these teams are only interested in their own stage of that development life cycle. The design team only care about becoming efficient in their own team. They don't get rewarded. They don't get a pat on the back if engineering become more efficient. They only care about themselves in that sense. And you think about how a lot of large organizations are structured. They're structured by these stages, and they're incentivized and rewarded on their own individual local efficiencies. So now we come to a problem where if there is a bottleneck in engineering, the capacity or the amount of work for sales product design becomes less because they have to wait for engineering to complete their bits. And now we come to another problem. We have underutilized resources, which is makes all the managers and all the people working in those teams very worried because they're worried about they want to do a good job, they want to be fully utilized, they want to be at full capacity. So they often go out and find work to do. And this leads to my next point, coming to the efficiency paradox. So the efficiency paradox is simply the greater the focus on utilizing resources within those teams, the less efficient the entire system becomes as a whole. So let me walk you through what's happening here. So sales, product, and design have less work to do now. So they start panicking. So they start producing more, doing more sales, writing up more business requirements and requirements documents, and pushing that through engineering. They start asking engineering, can you do some more estimates for us? Can you come to our meetings? Which further reduces the engineering's capacity. Downstream we have project management and account management. Now they have less to do now as well because engineering is a bottleneck. So they're like, oh no, we have to start increasing our capacity again. We want to see, daily status reports. We want you to come to our progress meetings and give updates, further reducing engineering's capacity. So at this point, this cycle starts to happen, and it drastically decreases the output of the system, and things going into production grind to a halt. And then what happens? Management gets involved. And what does management say? We have to increase the capacity of engineering, which means that those teams have to start working weekends, working evenings, have lunch at their desk. They get mad at everyone else, and everyone's mad at engineering. So it's not a good place to be. So what's actually happening in that bottleneck? So in this diagram, you'll see this diagram illustrates that when we focus on resource efficiency, we start creating a range of secondary needs, as you can see by those little lightning bolts. Now the sources of these secondary needs are long throughput time. So in my team, we had our development team, it took 30 days to get a firewall burn. So this is typically another system, and we need to open up a port in their system, and to get that done takes 30 days. All right, 30 days. That's quite a long time actually. So now we have to track that order. We have to follow up regularly. We have to report it. We have to manage it. We have to escalate it if it's late. It causes the team stress. Those are all secondary needs. Another source of this is people's ability to manage multiple units, or multiple do lots of things simultaneously. So things like having huge amounts of emails, having to answer all those emails, juggling many different tasks at the same time. And lastly, the restarts. So this is things like getting interrupted all the time. You have to stop and start things. It takes time to get back into the mindset. Also, you're having to do rework and defects, because you have to go back to the problem and figure out what the defect was all about. These things create, and the thing about secondary needs is that they create superfluous work. They consume capacity of the team, but add no real value to the end product. So who can relate to this? Any other examples of secondary needs that are created in your own situations? I know that in one of my teams they had 4 different systems to track their work. So they did the work, which took them 10 minutes, but they spent the next half an hour documenting, tracking and updating all the systems to show that they've done it. It's all superfluous work. Cool. So here's an illustration of what it looks like. Pretty much a traffic jam. You've got people on the left who are trying to maximize their capacity, all the traffic coming in, and it all gets bottlenecked at the constraint or at the bottleneck. And flow starts to slow down dramatically. So how do you fix the situation of a traffic jam? How do you get things flowing again? Anyone here want to take a guess? Yep.
Reduce the incoming lanes.
Yes, exactly. So this is what lean is. Getting that nice flow of traffic. Balancing flow, not capacity. Prioritizing flow efficiency over the efficient use of resources. And one of the focuses here is to not just focus on flow, but eliminating those wastes, those causes of superfluous work, those things that create secondary needs. How am I doing for time? Cool. So this leads us into the efficiency matrix. So this is something that I use in that same assurance team. And what it is, it helps you define what lean is. Lean is what you can see on the top right-hand side there. You've got resource efficiency on the left-hand side, and on the x-axis we have flow efficiency. So I know a lot of organizations and a lot of, especially large corporates, try to live in the efficient islands, top left-hand side there. They try to focus on high resource efficiency and low flow efficiency. And that's kind of where the assurance team sat when I initially started coaching them. You've got on the bottom right-hand side efficient oceans, where there's a low flow efficiency, so a high flow efficiency, but a low resource efficiency. So they've got a big focus on the customer and getting things out to them, but they're not so efficient at doing it. Probably the costs are high, there's a lot of capacity. You want to avoid wasteland, where you're neither efficient in flow or resource efficiency, and you want to try and push up towards getting into that lean, that perfect state. So what this helps my team with is you kind of plot where you think you are on this diagram. And then you kind of assess. So my team they thought they were at efficient islands. But after looking at all their superfluous work and all the secondary needs, they realized that they were more in the wasteland area. And then you draw them back to the business strategy. What is this business trying to achieve? Are they trying to focus more on the cost aspect? They want to provide the lowest cost to their customers? Or they're looking more at the customer experience, making it a great customer experience? Which is actually the focus, more of the focus nowadays, given all the competition in the market. The focus on the customer experience. That means this tool helps them show that you need to push towards that flow efficiency to get into that lean state. So understanding the strategy of that team or the company is very important to whether they want to go to more resource efficiency or flow efficiency. Any questions about this? I've kind of breezed over it pretty quick. So what are some ways to increase your flow efficiency? So a really good technique to use is value stream mapping, end-to-end value. I specifically put end-to-end. So looking at from when the customer first sees or tries your product to when you start using it and you start managing it and you build them for it. That end-to-end value stream. Typically, it's for a specific product or service, and you want to map from end to end all your value-add activities and non-value-add activities. Next, you've got the visualization methods. So you can track the work in progress. So you saw before we had the Kanban. You can use this. You can use that visualization against the value stream to understand where the work is piling up, where the work in progress is, and where the bottlenecks are. And that comes to my next point. Identify where your constraints are, where the bottlenecks are. And there's always going to be one bottleneck which is the tightest. Now, a lot of times the bottleneck isn't so much a person or necessarily even a team, but it's to do with the rules and policies of that department or organization. So a lot of this comes down to understanding the root cause of those constraints. And policies and rules is a big one too. Sometimes these policies and rules have been around for so long that they forget why they were even there. They need to be updated. Right. So you understand where the bottleneck is. What you want to try to do now is start making it easier for work to flow through that bottleneck. So you want to make sure that the quality checks are happening before the constraint, so that you don't get defects coming back from that bottleneck. You don't start getting issues there. You want to sort those issues out before you get to the bottleneck. So simple things like testing, checking things before they enter through that bottleneck. We've got preventative maintenance. So this is to do with reducing the chance of things breaking down, which interrupt the whole system. So things like you got infrastructure, you got environment, you've got even people actually. So people, how do we prevent people from burning out? This is all part of preventative maintenance. If the person who is the constraint gets sick, the whole system stops. Adding a buffer to the work constraint. So this is basically adding kind of like a backlog of work, so that constraint has always got something to do, so that they are at full capacity. And lastly, optimize the constraint. So, is there some way to offload some of the work so they can focus on that constraint? Removing blockers as a priority. So you can often in the Kanban system, you have like a fast lane or a critical lane, which are the things that are on the critical path that you want to remove straight away. Cool. So that's pretty much the end of my talk. So these are the books that I pulled from for this talk. The goal is probably a must-read, and then the Phoenix Project is great if you're working in software and you're interested in DevOps. That's a really good introduction and a fun read to begin with. This is Lean is a really good book. It is very much at the business strategy level, which is very good if you're working in a management position. And lastly, Diego Forte. He's got a lot of great articles. He's put all his articles on his own blog site now, and he's got a lot of really good practical advice. So look, my name's David Chong. If you like, connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, you can stick around now, and you can ask them via email if you like. Thank you for watching.